Now we're going to start talking about the rest of the world. We've been talking about us up to now. And what we do or say or feel for us is going to have an effect on the rest of the world. And what we do or say for the rest of the world has an effect on us. So, all right, so we're going to be looking at the world around us, the people around us, and notice that the title, Inheritance, the Wellspring of Life. We are, according to Paul, we are co-inheritors with Christ. We inherit the kingdom of God. We are princes of the realm. Of course, Miracle says the sons of God are the inheritors of everything that God is. So that's the inheritance, all that is, everything, everywhere. That's ours. And the wellspring of life is the realization that life everywhere is here for me, in, through, and as me, everywhere I look, everywhere I perceive, everything I experience, right? Mm-hmm. So the first concept, all realizations of good externalize in good. And I love that word, realize. You know, if I have the realization, I am making real for myself. And that's just a great concept, right? So all realizations of good externalize in good. They show up in my world. We train our inner realizations first. Then, since the world that emerges around us comes second, we deal with our world secondly. So that's why the second half. This science deals with the thoughts just as Jesus did, and then it speaks of externals. And you may recall in lesson 4, she was saying, Moses said, you know, we'll keep the covenant first, and then we'll act in alignment, and then we'll experience the blessings. That's how it happens, right? So in this science, the first 6 lessons are devoted to the realization of God in the soul, and the next 6 are devoted to our relations to the world. And there are several places as we go through here where she might say something like, having sung high praises to the universal beingness in the morning, I was ready to deal with, or the practitioner was ready to deal with whatever showed up in the afternoon with the, in the world. So we realize the relationship. We make real our understanding. We, in the morning, so that when we encounter things in the afternoon, they disappear quickly into the realization of the good. All right. And then the Moses quote, let the earth bring forth. Did you want to talk about looking for the quote?
Yeah,
we're going to jump back to pre-lesson 7.
Well, one of the things I heard Ruth say is that every lesson has a Moses quote and a Jesus quote. And I thought, well, a good way to introduce myself into doing all of the lessons was to go through and write down those 2 quotes out of each lesson. Well, I found them in all 6 lessons, except I couldn't find the Jesus quote in lesson 2. So that's why I spent so much more time reading, skimming, rereading, reading out loud lesson 2. Now I could find things that she said he had said, but there were no quote marks around it. Mm-hmm. and stuff. So it's why I ended up about 2 hours into this study of realizing that it was my attitude I had to negate and get rid of regarding the crows, and regarding something else that's going on in my life, that my thoughts had really become negative and it had sneaked in very insidiously, and I ended up venting to a couple people and realized that I have no one at home anymore that I can vent to hear myself say my thoughts out loud. So when I vented to these 2 people, I heard myself and realized those were my thoughts, and I'm speaking it, and I need to change that. And so I negated all of that. But lesson 2, and being unable to find that Jesus quote in lesson 2, is what got me so deep into it, and it's what I needed. And it changed not only the crows, it changed the other situation as well.
Yeah, of course. That's beautiful. Thank you. And the closest thing we can find is where it says in the Gospel of Luke.
Yes.
Okay, good. Very good. So now back to the Moses quote in lesson 7. No, I wanted to make sure that got said, and I didn't give you a chance. So Moses is using a figure of speech. I'm in that 4th paragraph in that page, that first page. When he says, quote, let mind do thus and so. Let mind, or God, or the earth, do thus and so. For in the Spirit all is already heavenly, already done. We are to see Spirit. We can see Spirit. And the more of Spirit that we see, the more perfectly we see things. You know, when I started to do this work way back when, the world that had been pretty ugly began to look pretty, began to look more beautiful. Driving up and down I-5 was what I was doing during that time. I was commuting between Portland and Palo Alto.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, once or twice a month, and usually 2 or 3 times a month, actually thinking about it, but making the drive at least once or twice a month. And so I-5 became, as I realized later toward the end, was shifting and changing as I was getting clearer and clearer in this work. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. The places that had been really ugly were disappearing, slowly but steadily, and they were being replaced by more and more beauty. It was a really wonderful indicator of what was going on. So all things are waiting to be looked upon by us as they really are, the crows. We're waiting to be looked upon by us, okay? The world around I-5 was waiting to be looked upon by me so that I could see its beauty. We have flowers and plants and dogs and critters and people in our world who are waiting to be seen as they really are.
Martha.
Exactly. And not as we have built up a story about them based on any number of things, right? And it's interesting how the building up a story has its own feedback loop. It reinforces itself. It reinforces itself. I'm watching this happen in a couple of places. It's like fascinating to me. Look at that. You've got this story going, and now it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's a reinforcing process. So, let's learn how to look at things as they really are. And the next sentence is really wonderful. If you let the Spirit tell you what is, then there will be no more talk about sickness, no discussion of what is distressing anybody. Okay? If you let it happen. Right? The soul self is the everlasting reality of everyone. The outer body is only the shadow system. Huge, huge. Yeah. All right. Our soul is spirit, free omnipotence, find their own outer forms, etc. The paragraph on 100. Likewise, our neighbor has a free, wise, unkillable soul self. Did you ever notice how you feel that the person who realizes your worthiness seems to understand you best? Isn't that nice? And then she talks about little Lord Fauntleroy. That painting, the reason that portrait was made was because old Lord Fauntleroy felt understood by the kids, so he kept a picture of the kid. That's why there's a portrait of little Lord Fauntleroy. Right. Next paragraph. It may seem impossible. You may think that the beastly characters we read about must not be called good. All right? That's what we've been trained to think. That's what the culture needs us to think. That's what an adversarial culture thinks. There's the good guys and the bad guys, and there's never the twain shall meet. Except that they overlap so amazingly, right? All right. You see very plainly the faults of those you meet every day and think it's impossible for you to call them good. But when we see anything as evil, it signifies how far we are from seeing spiritual truth. You can see for yourself that if God or good is omnipresent, then that which is not good is not present. All right. So when the 3-year-old, this is the good one, the 15-month-old who looks directly at you and knocks it off the table while they're looking at you. Okay? What is this kid being? It's not being naughty. They're just being their age, right?
Testing.
They're finding out what is acceptable and what isn't. That's what they're doing. Yeah, they're looking straight at you while they do it. My 6-month-old was doing that. Every surface had to be clean. She's the doctor now. I've often wondered if there's a relationship. But yeah, nonetheless good, nonetheless wonderful, especially as a grandparent. You know? Oh, isn't that cute? Yeah. All right. That which is not good is not present. Wherever we find profound thought and feeling, even in the most ancient religions, we find the same thing. Nothing exists outside ourselves. Nothing truly exists outside our perceiving and projecting. That's all that's happening in our worlds. When I see you, I am seeing an image in my head of you, and I'm literally, this has been measured, projecting that image onto each one of you. It is amazing how that happens, and it has been measured. So not only am I only able to perceive that which my filters will allow me to perceive, I am going to project onto you what I believe you are.
Yes.
And we know this. See a black kid with a hoodie in Florence, right? Or in a nice neighborhood, right? I was driving down 9th Street 9th Street in Newport the other day. And this Hispanic American, who knows, was walking down the street and he had his hood up and he was looking scared. And I'm going, oh, hon, relax. Put the hood down. Just relax. It's okay. But it was like, that guy's going to get stopped. Because he is literally projecting his fear and encouraging everybody's little buttons around fear. They're not going to see him. They're going to see what they are projecting onto him, right? Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
I have an example. There's, and I found myself reacting to this fellow's nervousness. So there's a man, he's a Vietnam vet, or he has a cap, big guy, and he writes books and he sells them from door to door around Florence.
Really?
So he came up to my door, and I opened the door, and he's nervous, and he goes, well, do you read? I go, yeah, I read a lot. And he goes, well, here's ones, and some of them were about war, so guns, right? And, with everything that's going on in the news, I noticed, well, he was nervous because he realized I was home alone, and so he got nervous because he was trying to probably be somewhat respectful, so he was backing up a little bit, right? And then I got nervous because his books were about guns. And then he said something about, well, do you like mysteries? Well, one of them was about POWs that are still in Vietnam. So I said, okay, I like mysteries. I'll take that one.
You're a sweetheart.
Well, but the point being is that we were reacting on each other's because he had his Vietnam, and I was like, oh God, this guy really likes guns and everything that's happening in the news, And afterward, I thought about it. I said, wow, we really just projected a whole lot. And then I have my altar outside. I have an altar outside right before you come in my door that has Ganesh and a goddess up there, and he was kind of looking at that like, who is she? And so yeah, we reacted to it. We were projecting on each other.
Fascinating. Thank you.
So
Thank
yeah.
There's a web site that's Florence neighborhood,
Uh-huh.
and there was a complaint about him on it.
Oh, there
Some woman,
was?
she was really afraid of him, and when
He's
I
big
read
guy.
it, I'm going, oh my God, what is she scared of?
Yeah, right,
And then
right.
someone else had said, oh yeah, he comes every year, and he's really
Yes.
nice.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, her initial reaction
Yeah.
on this was, oh, someone was at my house selling books.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
yeah.
suspicious.
Well, because his books are about,
Yeah.
guns,
Yeah.
you know?
I got it.
You know,
I got
I mean, if you look at the covers, you're like, oh, there's a gun on every cover, so it's like,
it. Yeah.
I don't think she got that far.
Yeah, she probably didn't. But.
And the number of people whose first job was walking around the neighborhood selling vacuum cleaners,
Yeah, sure.
encyclopedias.
Sure. Don't you remember the Fuller Brushman as you were
I
growing up?
was. a
Oh, you
Fuller
were?
Brush.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was finishing up college.
All right.
That's how I got through that last term.
All right, yeah.
There were some good products. in
There
there.
were,
Yeah.
there were, and I had some until 2 moves ago from my first job. Actually, it was my second. I was a bookkeeper before that. Yes, but yeah, going door to door and
Yeah.
selling Avon. That was normal. Now we're terrified of it, and that's the culture,
Yes.
cultural hypnosis.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then the thing to do is to realize that immediately. I know that's not like automatic, but if I'm feeling nervous about somebody else, that I can't let that stand, because
That's right.
That's right.
otherwise we won't be able to make contact with one another.
Well
Right.
done.
And I still remember the guy that was, we were stopped at a light in Boston. I mean, when you're stopped at a light, you're stopped. And so the people go around,
Yeah.
asking for donations. And,
And
this one
wash
guy,
your window.
Yeah, and we met eyes, and he stopped.
Yeah.
It
'Cause
was-
most
it was
people
a
don't
perfect
look.
moment. And I went,
Mm.
oh, isn't it nice?
Yeah.
Did you see that, son? No.
Yeah.
This is traffic.
Yeah, I hear you. That's beautiful. I'm glad you were able to do that.
Well, I really think that that's a necessary thing for me.
It's a necessary thing for all of us
Yeah.
to find that soul,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
whose
Find the
wise,
soul.
unkillable soul self, right?
Right under the dirt.
Under whatever it is, yeah. Whether it's anger or dirt or fear or whatever,
Or
there
guns,
is
or the book.
right, or a book about something you don't want to read,
Yeah.
or whatever, Yeah. Right. All right. So, then that which is not good is not present. And she gives a quote from the Lanka Viktara in that wherever paragraph, what seems external exists not at all.
That's right.
Okay? Paul talks about, I'm determined not to know anything among you except the Lord. Okay, I want to see that life, that love, that beingness when I look at you. Yeah? The realization of God is within ourselves. The realization, the making real of God is within ourselves. And we have supreme power over and with our own realizations. What am I thinking of? And that is the only discipline. What am I thinking? And what am I saying from those thoughts? Everything else falls away, whether you walk the dog. It's not a discipline, you do it because you love the dog, right?
Well, it's a good thinking time.
Yeah, and it's that too, right? Or whether you do your exercises or whether you eat certain ways or whatever, they are what comes out of what you're thinking and saying.
Right.
Every time. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's so true.
Yes, now we're going to get into praise, and she defines praise in an interesting way. She says, if I were asked what was the quickest way for a practitioner of this science to get the healing power going, I would probably say praise everything and everyone in your mind and speak those praises aloud. Isn't that marvelous?
It's easy to do.
It is.
I was driving down the street today. I was thinking of the guys who are putting the lines down the
Yes.
street, and all of a sudden I go, they're saving lives.
Nice.
They're saving lives. That's what they're doing. They're not out here in the heat, and being, they're saving lives.
And they know it at some level.
Yeah.
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 Right. I remember one time I was driving down a 2-lane road where the speed limit is 55 something. Someone else was driving, and we were all in the car, and someone says, "This is a miracle. There are thousands of cars on this road. We're all, when we encounter each other, it's a speed of 100 something, and accidents don't happen. Maybe one a month, maybe one every year. Isn't that amazing?" And those lines are part of how that happens. Thank you. That's beautiful. All right, and then the top of the next page, all religions in one way or another teach that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And we did that translation, the Simon & Schuster book, as we think, so we are. And then I put in the exercises to help people begin to feel that and see that and make the changes. And then, quote, "By thy words thou art justified," and that's the Jesus quote. The words we speak and the thoughts we think constitute the breath, the spirit. Spiritus, inspiration, respiration. Okay, it's the same thing. The breath of our mind, as the air constitutes the breath of our body. The words we speak and the thoughts we think are the breath of the mind, as the air is the breath of the body. Isn't that nice? Mm-hmm. And actually we can go even further than that, and we can say as the prana is the breath of the energetic body, right? But you don't have to go there if you don't want it. And then she talks about vision in the next paragraph, that their judgment is a function of their vision. We can talk about that in a little bit, but the third paragraph on that page, the glory of metaphysical science is that recognizing that our inward visual direction creates our perceptions and expectations. Our inward visual direction creates our perceptions and expectations, which then translate into material affairs in bodies. Okay? So what I'm expecting and what I am perceiving becomes more and more clearly a thing, an object, depending on all kinds of things, and has certain characteristics depending on all the things that I've been focusing on internally. All right? Yes. So the first and fundamental instruction is to exalt the inward vision, so that such exalted thoughts may formulate it into life-filled bodies and joyous experiences. All right, so I mentioned earlier that she talked about this man, Saki, who overcame an illness. And this is a beautiful, beautiful story. In 1814, this is 100 years ago, Kurozumi Saki became very gloomy by complaining. And the Japanese term for gloomy is inki. Inki. Suki had breathed the spirit of gloom until he was ill with deep-seated illness known then as consumption. He resolved one day to cease mourning and grieving, right? It was difficult at first, but he began to praise everything and everyone. He went on for some years, breathing into himself an entirely different set of words. He began to be very cheerful, even though his consumption seemed to be getting worse. One night, just as he supposed he was breathing his last, he was praising the rising sun, and a sort of buoyant ecstasy went through him. His breath grew deep and electrifying. He rose from the ground where he had collapsed and found that his breath was the very spirit of cheer, which the Japanese term yoki. His breath was a healing force for others as well. If he breathed on deformed or dying people, they were healed. All right? So several years of the discipline, the only discipline, what are we thinking and saying? It wasn't what he was eating, it wasn't what he was doing, it was what was he thinking and saying. Praising everyone and everything turned the situation around. Now, that's what I call chipping at an iceberg. Right? It's not getting rid of the stuff that led to the behavior, you're chipping away at it. And sooner or later, several years of praising everyone and everything, you will get there. You don't have to do it the hard way. You can do the Course in Miracles way and forgive. And the miracle is a shortcut according to the Course in Miracles. So, but this is a wonderful story, and he is still known today as the breathing healer. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. So the next paragraph, 102, praise of the ever-present provider, the ever-protecting defender, always meets with response. Praise of the earth's bountiful productivity has caused the earth to teem with plenty. Now this is a point that I make every year when I do my Power of Gratitude talk. America was the most bountiful provider of everything until the 1960s. Our soils were, except for in the Dust Bowl, and I'll talk about the Dust Bowl later, everything was incredible. And then in the 1960s, something happened. We stopped praying. We stopped saying grace at tables. We stopped doing the ritual prayer and blessing of the fields before plowing them. We started doing scientific agriculture. And our productivity has been going downhill except for brief expansions because of chemicals, but then that depletes the soil further. Now I know that some farms are contrary to this because I know you guys did amazing things and it was as much spiritual as it was physical. And that is part of what the permaculture world has begun to do, is to realize this is a spiritual action as well as a physical thing. But I am of the conviction that America's economic distress is in large part because we forgot to praise the source of it, the earth, and we forgot to bless the harvest of it. Yeah? It'd be interesting to see what would happen if we could turn that around, wouldn't it? All right. Praise of gold has hurried gold into the coffers of seekers. All right? And it can be in all kinds of forms, okay? Praise of beauty has turned heads to seek it above integrity, motherhood, and even spirituality. Right? Praise of labor overruns the world with willing workers seeking employment. You start making the laborer and being a worker very important, suddenly you have unemployment, high unemployment levels, because you have lots of people who are willing workers. And this was, again, she was in Chicago during the Haymarket riots, and when they were having problems during that time. All right. So she gives us a little, the last line in that paragraph, concerning the work of my hands, offer praise and thanksgiving. Offer praise and thanksgiving whenever you see the divine activity. And then she gives us the root of it, Judah, the tribe of Judah, praise of God. I sing praise. Judah is the tribe of kings among the Hebrews. That was why it was so important that Jesus' lineage be clearly in the tribe of Judah, on both sides, both Joseph and Mary. All right. David, Solomon, Jesus were all in that tribe. The scepter shall not pass from Judah is the promise. Its power is in praise. Okay? Because the tribe of Judah is the praiseful. It says, I praise God. Second paragraph, 102. I'm praising God. Judah. I praise God. The scepter of power does not leave the hand of the one praising God, is what that is saying. Okay? So now, here's where she starts helping us understand praise a little better. Recognition is a form of praise. If I don't see you, then you've been put down, haven't you? Anybody who doesn't see anyone else. Description is a form of praise. Even to describe what we do not like magnifies its importance and spreads out its impacts. Okay? Zechariah in the biblical Tanakh says, let none of you imagine evil. None of you imagine evil. Again, what is the discipline? What am I thinking about? And what am I talking about? Right? All right, next paragraph. No one is so mistaken that we cannot praise their wise free spirit. No one is so negligent or reprehensible that we cannot praise their integrity and uprightness. Ooh, that hurts. Right?
Yeah.
So we have.
Seriously.
Right. So some aspect of this person has integrity. I may not be able to see it yet. There's a pony out here somewhere. All right. All right. Yeah. No one's so old or sick or lame that we cannot praise their beautiful, flawless, free divinity. Okay? Huge, huge to be able to see through the appearance to the soul. See through the appearance to the reality of the person. To realize in our own minds the truth of this person. That's what being a practitioner is. That's what you're doing in a treatment. That's what a good Christian prayer is all about. It's saying, I am, I recognize that this is a child of God. I'm putting this child of God in God's hands, right? In the Jewish prayer tradition, it's a little different, but it's the same kind of thing, that I'm recognizing that God is at work here, and I choose to see God's work being done here, right? Yes. So that's a beautiful, important thing. Then she goes on, you may sometimes find yourself seeming to be sick, though nothing has happened to you. You may appear to be ill. If so, then you've caught some of the world's false beliefs, or maybe some old notions you used to think are showing themselves. And then she talks about a woman who's taking on colds. There's a thing in some Science of Mind churches and many Unity churches where they call race consciousness. They're saying the human race consciousness,
right,
species consciousness, and I'm saying cultural consciousness,
Okay.
because if I don't live in this culture, I'm not affected by it. Right? So cultural consciousness.
So you're saying race consciousness is cultural
Right.
consciousness? Okay.
Yeah. Because cultural consciousness is responding to the world in a fairly unified fashion, right? We all grew up with the same basic ideas. We all grew up with the same assumptions. We all grew up being taught certain things. And so we react in those ways. If we grew up in an entirely different context, we wouldn't even be aware of it. It's irrelevant to us, right? A lot of the things that get us most upset in this culture. So one of the things I quoted in the group I was in yesterday that Joel Goldsmith talks about in his Art of Spiritual Healing is how often we get caught up in the cultural hypnosis. Yeah. Everyone around us is reacting to something, and we don't even know it's happening, but we're picking it up and reacting to it too. And so one of the things we have to do, and you need to do, is say, no, that's not who I am. Who I am is this spirit, having this human experience. That's not who I am. That doesn't have to define my experience, because my experience is defined by this, this spirit being or whatever. So however you want to go there. So that's part of what she's looking there. And then the italics at the bottom of the paragraph. No disease comes from material causes, though the world may speak as if they do. All is in thought first. So I look first at my own thoughts. If I cannot see any way in which my ideas of the universe and myself could be related to the experience I'm having in the body, then I go into the culture. What did I pick up from the culture? What is normal in the culture? I had one Unity minister I worked with every fall. She would say, okay, everyone, get ready. The TV is about to tell you you're going to get the flu. Just be forewarned. Know that it's not true. Right?
Okay, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate.
Please.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so how about things like the Black Death
Yeah.
and smallpox and those things that happened, and there's still many diseases, Ebola, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they are the manifestation of thought. They are the manifestation of a cultural thought. The disease and the thought may not be directly linked, Remember when I talked about the woman with the hips problem, and it was about her resentment of her daughter's decisions.
Yeah.
Okay? So, in many cases, the manifestation is simply I was going to say virulent.
Yeah.
Fun.
That would be cancel that.
A very visible, highly, an intense experience. There we go. An intense experience that is comparable in intensity to whatever the thought process is. So if there is anger and hatred, it's going to be anger and hatred showing up, and fear. So, have you read Barbara Tuchman on the 14th century? Oh my goodness, you might want to read it. Tuchman. Marvelous stuff. I've forgotten what she called. Yeah, mirror.
Tuchean.
No, Man. Tuchman. Mirror of Darkness. Is that what it was? It's a history of the 14th century, and it tells you how you went, starting with the Inquisition, through all the plague years to the Renaissance, and what the pieces were, and it had to do with the fear and the hatred that the Inquisition brought out in the in the 1100s. 1179 is when it began, and then how that spread through the area, and then how that created fear and hatred of people who knew about wellness that were not in the church. And so those people now were getting killed off. And so hygiene started, and she can trace this whole thing. So the plague years are a beautiful illustration of how fear and hatred can lead to a disease situation, okay? Ebola is not quite so obvious, except unless the conspiracists are right and it was invented. But it's still that same kind of thing, fear and hatred becoming manifest. It may not be that the individuals have that, but they are part of the culture that has that, and so they're caught in that hypnosis, if you will. And they have to undo that. So that's where she's going with it. I hope that's useful.
Yeah, I would like to argue with you some more about this. Okay.
I've been working with this one for a long time.
Okay.
Because, and one of the things we need to be very, very cautious of, and this is why recognizing the cultural hypnosis is so important. Cancer incidence has grown in exact parallel with requests for funds for cancer research.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Really? Right? Heart disease in exact parallel. Okay? It's not that our individual thoughts are necessarily the cause of this specific set of symptoms, but it is that we are living in a field of expectation. Remember, what we expect is what we will experience. So we're living in a field of that expectation. All right? Yeah.
Well, and now they're advertising about, don't send your kid to college without a meningitis vaccine, and don't let your kid go beyond puberty without an HPV vaccine or something.
Which
it's
is
kind of like
totally a
really
scam.
I mean, really, it's
Because they might have sex.
Because they live in co-ed dorms and the pressure is on them for that. Yeah.
Is
I
sex
mean, we never
contagious?
worried
Oh.
about that.
Yeah,
They're trying to
fear that.
say that.
Fear that.
And they say
Yeah.
1 in 10 who get it will die, and it's kind of like, yeah, but
One in 50,000 get it.
yeah, but it's just the fear that they are trying to instill in all these commercials that they,
They're desperate.
ask your doctor about this, get
Right.
vaccine.
Must make a lot of money.
Yeah, it's
on
all-
it.
They do.
Yeah.
They make a
They're
lot of
desperate.
money on it, and someone is quite convinced that they were present in the situation where some pharmaceutical board members were sitting there saying their goal is to get every American on 7 prescription drugs
Oh, fun.
all the time.
Oh, they would love that.
Wouldn't they love that?
Yeah.
So, it's just, if you think about corporate capitalism, by law we are required to increase the dividends to our stockholders. That's their only reason for existence by law, under a C Corp law. That's all they're allowed to do.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, you've got to have those kinds of things happen.
Oh, remember the polio vaccines on the sugar cubes?
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of thing? Well, unknown to my parents at that time, I was really, really sick when I was 3 years old, and I had a very high fever for about a week, and it was thought it was the flu. Until when I was 7 years old, I was given a sugar cube with a polio vaccination
Right.
stuff on it, and ended up getting a mild case of polio.
Wow.
Because what I had
It
when
was
I was
live
3 years
vaccine.
old was a mild case of
The
polio.
Sabin system was of a live
A
vaccine.
live vaccine.
Wow. I started getting sick every time I had them. My mother was so afraid of polio that I had 7 rounds
Oh.
of polio vaccines.
And actually, when I went back and looked at some of the documentation, that happened to a lot of kids. A lot of kids had had a mild case, and sometimes that mild case would give you a natural immunity, but sometimes it was a threshold that the vaccine was supposed to be mild enough not to cause it, but you already were carrying it in your
Bingo.
body.
Bingo. Yeah. Yeah.
I had a mild case of lockjaw from a tetanus shot. And now, it was terrible. By the time my jaw started clenching, and I'm going, and they gave it to me without, no, I don't want that. Oh, you should really have that, and bingo. And so now on my chart it says, do not ever give me
Right.
any kind of a vaccine.
Yeah.
Because I just,
Yeah.
Right.
I got it. Yeah, some people are sensitive to begin with, and there was this fear and this expectation and these other things that led to the experience. Okay, I can tell you a number of things like that, and you can probably, if you think about it, so and so was so afraid this was going to happen, and that's the book of Job. That is the book of Job. My greatest fear has come upon me, right? And so keep those fears mild.
the fear,
Give them.
fearometer.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so very much. Okay. No disease comes from material causes, though the world may speak as if they do. All is in thought first. So when you get that, then the first thing to go to, okay, there are symptoms, what are the thoughts? Okay. Now, the Fillmores are very clear on this, the ones who most supported this idea, and that is pray first, and if that doesn't work, go to the doctor.
Right.
All right? You do everything you can with the mental, spiritual processes, and if for whatever reason there is not improvement, allow the other stuff to work. It's part of what it's been here too. It's part of what's here for you. I used to have people who were afraid to tell me that they were going to get surgery or they were going to take a medicine. No, whatever works. It's and we'll talk about that as we get further. Okay. So next paragraph or next section, the healing ministry. It is possible by persistent praise of the free self to make a total change in someone's appearance. If we're suddenly aware of the free self that comes sweeping in with our neighbor, a very little silent description of what we sense will cause the shadowy system to drop its gloom of illness or decay. Okay, so if I see the person coming in and I focus on their great spiritual well-being, the system of whatever was disturbing them slips away, at least in our presence, right? Until they slip back into the old habit of thought. But
You find that when people say, I just love it when you come around. I love running into you.
I feel so much better when
I
it's
feel so much better. Yeah.
Yeah, well done. And you and Larry both were like that. Yeah, you've both done that individually and collectively. All right. We may not yet be aware by any inner sense of hearing, smelling, teaching, et cetera, that the free soul self is present, yet by the reasoning of the science. So let's say in a moment I'm not able to capture that. Someone walks in the door and all of my flags are up. then I have to reason it out. I have to follow the intellectual process on the premise that all beings are this bright soul self being, right? And then I can focus on it again. Yeah? That's what she's saying there. We must go on describing that soul, praising it, commanding it, that any shadow of pain, sickness, or poverty must move aside for the smile of the Spirit's well-being to glow in our neighbors or our clients' face or form. Okay? So we keep focusing on it. Now, when Ernest Holmes was doing his practice in the Institute for Religious Science, people would come in and they'd start telling him their tales of woe, and he knew they had to get it out of their system. So he would go, not so, not so, not so, not so, no, not happening, not so, no, that's not real either. And then he would start telling them, I hear your story, and I just want you to know that this is what I see when I look at you.
Right.
And he'd start praising their true self, their ideal self, their real self. And they loved him for that.
Yeah.
In fact, when they made 10 Commandments, he's the one they hired as their biblical advisor, and he wasn't a Bible minister.
Well, that's very similar to the story about the doctor who would go in and even to the patient who was dying, say, I think you're going to be better, you look better, and all of this. And even though the patient went ahead and became a deceased, the families loved him.
Right, yes.
They didn't feel like they had been, led astray by
Deceived
this or anything.
Right.
And his practice was thriving when the doctors who said, "Oh yeah, it's over,"
Right.
they didn't care for them.
Right. And that's, a very, very useful thing to be aware of. Yeah.
When I was first taught treatment, so the minister would say, okay, give them about 5 minutes to tell you all of that stuff, but don't let them go on more than 5 minutes. And then he, taught us ways to gently bring it around to treatment.
Marvelous.
So,
marvelous. That's beautiful.
But they needed their 5 minutes most of the time.
Need to get it out of the system. Yeah. And I see that as just the venting, releasing process. I'm seeing it flowing out the door or out the drain in the floor, right? Yeah. Okay, the next paragraph. True descriptions are the new gospel. The gospel means good news. Do not wail that, though you only seek to know God, little false notions creep into your mind. Do not complain that, oh, you really love the highest, your body is not sound. Can't you see that in doing so you're focusing on the errors?
Right.
Right? Rather than on the Lord that heals. Praise the true self is the message of the good news. So many clever describers of degraded human conditions are among us, right? And that's what journalists have become trained to do,
Really?
right? And it's like, really? So I'm starting to imagine a different kind of school of journalism, right?
Yes.
Can you imagine what it will be like as people go out in the world with the intention of seeing the good made manifest in their communities? Yeah? Yes.
Yeah, that would be better.
Okay. Now, here is another thing for the viruses like Ebola. The next paragraph, the first sentence. Why would you say that God has afflicted you if saying such a thing makes you a disease breeder?
Ooh.
All right? We have a lot of places in the world where a form of Pentecostal Christianity has come into place that says God does these things to us to punish us. All right? God has afflicted you. And there are a lot of people who have accepted those teachings along with Jesus Christ has saved you, aiming for the Christ has saved you, but also hearing this other thing. Does that make sense? All right.
Actually, it sounds very confusing.
It is. It is very confusing because people are aiming for this salvation, but they're told they're here. And that,
Suffering.
Try harder.
No.
right.
Or give money, or
right.
Give us
You
your
know,
money.
and right, but the idea that all of these things that happen to us are somebody out there capriciously. Grace is a capricious thing. It's not something that is here everywhere and we can open ourselves to. It's something that God capriciously bestows on people within mainstream Christianity. That's the lesson, okay? Or that God capriciously decides, you know, it's in the book of Job, oh, devil, you want to make that guy's life miserable? Okay, you can do that. No, that's not what it really says, but that is how it's been interpreted. And so we live in a culture that says those things, and it tends to encourage distress in the people who hear it. And when Quimby, Phineas Parker's Quimby, began to see that if he could get in touch with what people had heard and had accepted, their symptoms dissolved, he began to understand how much of what was going on, both in the church, in the schools, and in the doctor's office, was contributing to the caseload that he was faced with. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, a lot of his writing were rants against ministers and doctors.
I just don't understand how people could call it Christian.
Well, that's another piece of it. That's, you know, remember my grandmother used to say Jesus was the greatest humanist, right? That's what I said on Sunday. Because as a humanist, he saw the best in everyone and encouraged that, right? Whereas, yeah, they pick and choose from what the Bible says, that which relates to their existing mental framework. And another piece of it is the child of an authoritarian parent will tend to either step into or become or become part of a system of that. You know, so that's the nature of humanity. Where our job is to see through that and to see that that person that is saying those things is actually saying, I love you, please love me. That's all they're saying to everyone in the only way they know how. I love you, and I want you to love me. I love you. I'm teaching you these things because it's what I understand to be true. I'm teaching you these things because it's what I understand to be true.
And actually what they did is make God into Santa Claus. Keeping the list, checking it twice, coal or candy, take your pick.
Yeah, unfortunately. So we want to be clear, right, about the joy and the beauty and the freedom and all of that. All right, so the last paragraph on that page, sometimes the way to meet apparent hardships that have clung to us for months or years is not by saying that they are nothing, rather it's by finding the Holy Spirit of them. And I think this next story is a story about herself, autobiographical. A young scientist found herself hoarse, and though other parts of her body quickly healed when told that nothing could ail them, her hoarseness stayed on. One night, after whispering for nearly 3 months, she said, "You seem to stay around me as if you'd nowhere else to go and belong here. And I've been snubbing you and treating you badly. I will do so no more. As God, with good for me, right? As good for me in your presence, I bid you welcome in love. You may stay with me as long as you please." In the morning, she was cured. The crow.
Just wanted acknowledgement.
That's right. It's just, I love you. Please love me. Embracing is not just for fears. Embracing is for whatever seems to be distressing us in whatever way. And as we embrace it, we realize it's just the universe saying, I love you. Please love me. Pay attention. You know, and in this case, I think the whispering and sore throat were more, you haven't been paying attention to the throat. Pay attention, love the throat, care for that. And a piece that I discovered in my own process is that as I began to heal the body, it literally moved up chakra by chakra. And I would start getting symptoms in each chakra area, right? And so then I would find, oh, there's the key for that area. or there's the key for that area. And that has been a very powerful tool for me because, for one thing, it says, oh, I'm clenching in the throat. I need to pay attention to what is going on there. What is the communication issue? Is it something that's being blocked that wants to be said, or is it something that I'm saying that I really don't need to be saying? Yeah, what is going on there? Or any of the other parts of the system. It's a very helpful guide. So if you're getting stuff in the belly, what are your understandings of the chakra? And then what do you... can you see that might be a way through that emotional and spiritual state? Make sense? Yay. So I think that's part of what was going on with her. Okay, overcoming fear. Speaking of it, much material misfortune can be traced to dread or fear, in this case, of people's influence or opposition. Jesus said to agree with your adversary quickly. He meant take up that person that you've dreaded and establish that you're not afraid of them, that they must be good as you are good.
Do you know what that quote was? Where
Agree with your adversary quickly. He says if you're going into the temple, if you're going to have a lawsuit, no, agree with them on the way.
Okay.
Or if you have an ill feeling about your brother, go settle it with him before you come into the temple.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then she's going to use adversary in some interesting ways as we move forward. So, but that's such an amazing thing. If we have issues with someone, we need to find the way in which their soul self and our soul self are loving each other. And when we can do that, when we can release any other idea and know that, then that stuff doesn't happen anymore. Two things happen. One of three things happens. One is we see a shift in their behavior toward us. I love that. A second one is they disappear. They simply are no longer a part of our daily world because what that person stood for is now no longer an issue for us. The person fulfilled its contract, if you will. It fulfilled the contract of showing up as that for you. You got it. You cleared it up. And now there's no need for that person to show up as that for you. Okay?
And your word dissolving is perfect for
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you. It took a long time to find that word, and it really is marvelous.
You didn't use it when I first met you.
No, it's only been the last couple of years, really, year and a half or so, that I've been using dissolve in that space.
Yeah,
and it works very well. Yeah. So yes,
It's like it never existed.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's
that's great.
Yeah, to get
It
to
is
that
nice.
place where it never existed, where maybe someone will ask you a question sometime and you'll have a vague memory of, oh yeah, I guess that did happen, and that's it. There's nothing else. Yeah. Well done. Next paragraph. Be clear that no one can enter the sphere of life where you dwell except as pure good. No one can knock on the door. No one can be in the grocery store with you. No one can work on your car or approach your car. They're not going to enter your sphere except as pure good. And this is your protection. That's all the protection there is that knowing that in my sphere, the only thing that exists is pure good.
It's the bubble.
It's the bubble. And the bubble can be, I was told to put a pink bubble around things for this, a visual, before I understood this principle. And it works because it kept the mosquitoes out. One time I put my bed down in the dark and I woke up in the morning and the ant path that was clearly across the bed had gone around the bed. Thank you very much. I lived in an inner city neighborhood where 2 blocks over there were all kinds of nasty things. Our block was always fine. A bunch of people getting along and mutually supportive. It was, the pink bubble, right? But it was this. It was knowing that where I am, only good can be, where I dwell. And then I started using it on airplanes. in the air around me, only good can dwell, right? In the seats around me, only good can dwell. I had an interesting experience. In India, the airline canceled my flight, but did not replace it with another flight. They required that I go to another airport. I had to fly to another airport and get another flight. And it happened that I had to wait 5 hours before the ticket counter opened. So I'm sitting in the ticket counter area with all of my luggage and can't even use the bathroom because I'm in the ticket counter area with all of my luggage for 5 hours. So when I was like, I was obviously not in a very high state of consciousness. But I took it as well as I could under the circumstances. So finally the window opened and I explained the whole thing to the guy and he says, there's nothing I can do. I am so sorry. What he did for me, he gave me a whole row of seats, all to myself, in the extended legroom place.
Whoa.
There's nothing I can do for you. I'm terribly sorry. I went, oh, you are amazing. When I got on the plane and it turned out that's what it was, we took off, I went, wow, what a guy. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I slept. I was 48 hours from hotel room to the bed I was in. Mm-hmm. So I was actually able to sleep for a couple of hours at a time on that plane. Mm-hmm. So that was very kind. But yes, we can have a bubble of goodness. Mm-hmm. All right. The last paragraph, well, I'm going to do in the middle of the third paragraph there, the third paragraph of overcoming fear. If through fear you don't speak audibly about things, you must redouble your thoughts and speak them a few times to your seeming discredit. Okay, so someone's sitting in front of you, or they've walked in the door and they are miserable, or they are behaving in ways that are inappropriate. You have to be able to get into this place of knowing the truth of them, and I'm not always able to, I'll honor that, but I do the best I can, getting into that place of knowing the truth about them and then saying that truth out loud. If it doesn't happen because you said it inside, if you haven't seen the transformation, you have to say it out loud to your seeming discredit. Mm-hmm. And then, if you are timid about telling people they are well now, I'd advise you to run the risk of your pride a few times. Mm-hmm. Okay? I used to work with a minister who was raising teenage boys, and every now and then they'd pull the teenage boy thing, and she'd look at them and go, wow, that's not like you. It was amazing. That's not, wow. And I took that, I was hanging out with a guy for a little while years ago, and every now and then he'd get into this ranting, yucky space. And I'd look at him and I'd go, is that your dad?
Yeah.
It worked. But, we need to know the truth and be willing to say it. And, as practitioners, wow. Be willing to say in the face of someone who's there in their stuff, I know better, and you know better too, and so this is what's really true here. Right? Yeah. That's where lesson 7 is moving us. And then the next paragraph, you may fear that it won't come out right, and people will think you are foolish and tell others so. Can't you put your own reputation in the hands of omnipotent truth? Isn't that an amazing line? Mm-hmm. Woo! Woo! All right. Which do you suppose had the larger practice? The cheerful, buoyant doctor? Right. That's really it. All right. Now, she gives us another hint in the next paragraph. Perfect love of your science takes away your fear. Yeah, you love this stuff. You love these ideas. You see it. You know it. You're so into it. How can you be afraid that it's not, what the outcome might be, right? That's what she's saying. And after a while, you don't talk the science much. Instead, you heal by some hearty, simple, cheerful word that bubbles over from your constant thoughts of health and life. So you don't even have to do the whole process after a while. You just go, oh yes, of course. Hi, oh, you're looking so good.
Does feel good.
Doesn't it? Yeah. So there you go. Some stories there. I'll give you some stories. You can do that as you go through there. And I'm going to turn page now to guidelines for treatment. Now, each of these lessons that we're doing now, 7 through 12, are increasingly intense guidelines for treatment. This lesson 7 assumes someone's walking in the door for the first time asking for assistance. Okay? And these guidelines address that. Now, lesson 8 assumes that they've come back a second time. Lesson 9, they've come back a third time. Lesson 10, they've come back a fourth time. So the guidelines address that. And I got hooked on Emma when I was having a business problem. I was trying to sell a house. And I had a deal lined up and it fell through. And I had another deal lined up and it fell through. And I was going, what's this about? I don't understand. And I have not really studied Emma. She'd been part of our training, but kind of like you know. And yeah, you get a little cursory glance at her. And I have a shelf of metaphysical books near me, usually when I'm meditating. And I was in that space of, okay, there's an answer to this. And I reached over and the Emma book glowed. So I pulled the Emma book open and I opened it and I landed on, something about, and I think it's the third one. Yes, if your patient comes around a third time, it's because you have been thinking, blank, blank, blank. And I went, oh my goodness. It happened, it was shortly after George W. Bush was elected. And it was, I was convinced that there were things going on behind the scenes that we didn't know about, that were not to our benefit. And that's exactly what it described. That you have been imagining that something is going on behind the, what's really, and I got it.
Wow.
I got to study this book. So that's what started this whole process for me.
Wow.
So each of these things are helping us see what has been going on in our thinking and in our a feeling nature. Okay, sometimes it isn't even thoughts. It's a feeling reaction, right? Good. So guidelines for treatment. Okay. Learn to get exactly right ideas, and you will, after a while, educate the world just by thinking this science. Okay? You don't have to tell someone they don't have a disease, they never took on a chill or whatever. If every bit of them is convinced that they caught the flu, you treat them silently. You need not talk all the time about any point in science, but simply know the truth. All right? And this is why we spend time on doing the early lessons, because they are statements of truth. And they are opportunities for us to bring that truth deeper and deeper into our understanding and our experience. And this is why on Saturdays we reason out each of the points that are offered, is so that we have a clear understanding, right? If I've got a clear understanding, then I know it, right? Understanding and knowing. So this is, again, autobiographical. I'm sure of it. There was a young metaphysical practitioner who had spoken mighty praises one morning. Mighty praises, remember? Of the way that God, as the health and salvation of the people, would work through her to will and to do. I am a tower of strength, radiant, the radiant I am of lesson 5, right? I speak this, I think this, I write this. God is working through me. She was in that place, right? And then this guy came in the door. Okay? She'd been troubled by her apparent lack of success as a healer, but she meekly acknowledged that God was doing great things for her, through her, and by her. Right? Her first case that morning was a lame man, and though she felt great compassion for him, she had no thoughts. I talked about the throat. All right. So you know how that is? Someone walks in the door. You can either start the monkey mind going, or you can just be centered and in the know. In some, yeah, and that's what happened to her. So, she felt that if God didn't manifest through her, there was no way she could make anything happen. This sense held her silent. Are you doing that for me?
No. And I will know when I really have this when I have clear sinuses.
All right, no, thank you.
Because I've had them all my life.
Uh-huh.
Up until now.
Up
Until now. And from now on.
They've been clear a few
You
times, and I'm
don't.
going,
Yes,
I get it.
yes. You got it for the moment.
They're back.
Right. Well, when you and the crows are good friends, and you and your neighbors are good friends, and
Yes, I have some work to do.
we all do, obviously. All right. And the truth is, the only work we have to do is to know. Just to allow ourselves to know. We don't have to do anything in this book, but this book helps us to know. Yeah. All at once, without realizing she was going to. Okay? So she had no thought. She didn't make up her mind, this is what I'm supposed to do. She didn't follow any formula. She didn't do anything. She just was in that place. And then the guy walks in the room. She told the man to throw down his crutch and try to walk across the room. He obeyed willingly and found he could limp without his crutch. Very well. She had him try 2 or 3 times more, and he was cured. It seemed as if his flesh and muscles had drunk the elixir of this new mental atmosphere. The little woman, unsure of herself, had made herself so silent that the voice of the Spirit could speak to the waiting soul of the man. I love that. Yeah.
Monkey mind.
Monkey mind. So we fill our mind to the point where the only thing there's room for is what Spirit has to say. When I sit up here in front, most of what I'm doing is going, okay, this is who's here. Love them all. Spirit, you know exactly what to say to them. It doesn't work nearly as well if I'm sitting up there. And that's one of the things that happens at Unity. I have to take a moment, because they have me sit in the front row of chairs. They don't have a thing like this. I have to take a moment to really collect. And often I'll sing facing them in an attempt to begin to do that. Yeah. So
I do have a chair up there, but no one chooses to sit. None of the speakers choose to
I
sit
will.
in it.
I'll sit there. And part of what I'm doing too is I'm blessing everyone in the group. I'm letting Spirit, be flowing through me, so that the words that are going to be there and the energy that is being there is what the group is ready for, to take it to the next step. And that's what we can all do in every situation. And I'm guessing you do that at Food Share. A little bit. Create the space for ease and flow and loving things to happen.
She does.
It just seems like it's always been that way.
Bingo!
Yeah.
That's all you need. You need to know that that's the nature of the space. Thank you, my love.
I flunked so bad yesterday.
Oh. There's no such thing as flunking, my dear.
What
you got was-
learning experience.
Yeah, you got
I
a
was
teaching story.
Registering high school students. And
This is summer school.
No, for the fall.
Oh, for the
It's
fall.
starting. The summer's over.
Wow.
And this Confederate flag pair walked in.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Father and son.
Love you.
Top to bottom, Confederate flag all the way.
Oh, wow.
And I
Nice.
did not think to bless him.
It's okay, dear. Guess
It
what
never
you can...
occurred to me.
Okay, so shall we all assist you in blessing him right now?
Yes.
Them.
Father and son.
Father and son, seeking their good, seeking to know that all is well for all beings. Yes. In their own way and in our way too. We bless them. We know this truth about them. And we know that there's an openness there that they may not have seen before. and they will be experiencing very shortly in a loving way. Well done. And this is something, miracles are not tied to space and time.
Right, right.
And entering into that space where you see and feel that shift, that's a miracle. That's what the Course in Miracles calls a miracle, okay? And that is literally outside of space and time. So anytime there is something something you would like to have seen handled differently, go back into the situation, whether it's in your childhood or in the last week or whenever. Go back into the situation, allow the new way of being to be your experience. Again, it's helping to dissolve the iceberg. Well done. Thank you all. Thank you for bringing it up, April.
Could we do
All
that
right.
for 1 second for those two
Sure.
girls, please?
Oh, your girls, absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
did it on the way to the car, but that would be great.
Yeah, so we know that these girls who were being talked about in this experience that Brooke was having this morning are just filled with and surrounded by the light and the love and the glory of beingness, and that they are free of any possible, residue from any past experience. We can see that and feel them and see them stepping into their wholeness and their love and their readiness to express spirit as power and as wisdom and as love in every aspect of the world. We can see that and know that to be true, because it is the truth of it.
And their stepmother sees their beauty and sees their spirit and just affirms for them.
And sees them whole
Beautiful,
and
yes.
well. Whole and well. And that whole family situation just reshuffles into one of support for everyone's well-being. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
It's nice to treat as a group, isn't it? You know what I mean? It really is.
It heals us all.
It does. Yeah.
And it reinforces. The state of consciousness reinforces.
Yep.
It's kind of like group meditation.
Right.
I must go.
Hmm?
I must go.
It's 25 till.
Yeah, I must go.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, it's 5:30 when it meets. So
So that's
I
right. You gotta go now. You gotta get all the way to Newport.
I
So,
will.
all right.
Good to see you. See you next week. Have a good week.
Thank you.
All right.
Stay safe and.
All methods are the same on your way out the door.
What?
All healing methods are the same. They're simply different ways of having that knowing that all is well. Yes, we'll get there in a minute.
Okay.
But she needed that before she went anywhere.
Yeah, don't make it complicated, right? I think that's what my message was just now.
Mm-hmm.
No. just checking. I have to.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
See you. Thank you. You too.
Okay, 107 in the middle of the page. There's been no practitioner of the science who has struck the spring with such perfect understanding that he worked out his cures with perfect consistency. Historically, that has been true. Okay? There are moments when your healing power will be wonderful. When those moments are gone, you may feel mournful. But you must not mourn even about that. For your power lays in praise. You are to be cheerful under all circumstances, as cheer is a praiseful feeling. The cheerfulness may even rise to ecstasy, at which point the healing is instantaneous. Yeah. And Nona Brooks, whose teacher was one of Emma's students, and she was in Pueblo, Colorado. Her sisters moved to Denver and moved her to Denver, and she would spend her summers doing the healing practice. School years, she taught in school. And some days there would be 8 or 10 or 12 clients over a period of 4 or 5 hours, right? And so she would, get into that place of feeling and knowing the presence, and for her that was the whole place would light up. right, as it was in her class. And she would, and then she would know the truth. She would hear this sense of what is it? Okay, yes, wholeness and well-being for this person, wholeness and well-being, or some version of that, whatever it was. And she would get to the point where the last few people who came in the door, it was, oh, hi, yeah, you're fine. The boil would disappear immediately, or the whatever it was, She would be in that place so high in that space that anybody that walked in was fine. So that's what she's talking about here. You need not worry, in the next paragraph, you need not worry about whether you should speak. If you've taken the fresh morning for giving thanks and glad praises to the Spirit, speaking forth freely some lesson of the science, your mind and aura will be filled with all the blessed qualities of God through the day. Yes. All right. All methods the same. Truth takes away all our dependence upon outside help, or even what may seem to be outside help. We learn to see God in the apparently sick man as health because we know that as health, God is there, and so on. Going down to the next paragraph, so there's really no need to study the past, even the symbols of teachings of Moses and Jesus. In this metaphysical science, we realize this knowledge without going back to pick men's thoughts. At some point, all of these teachers say, you stop studying, you just live it. But I encourage a daily practice because we forget. It's not like we live in a community of healers, right? And so the daily practice is to, thank you, love. We are moving into living in a community of healers where everyone knows this truth. We are becoming that. We are living that. And so, as we do our daily practice, we are making that manifest in our experience. And we can be reminded day after day after day of the truth.
Yeah, it really helps my personal vibration just to do the daily treatments for myself or the practice or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I can really feel it.
Yay!
Just,
Yay! I may need to do the 4 laws of spiritual success again. The 4 S's in spiritual success. All right. Then the short paragraph in the middle of the page, God with them, in them, through them, is the same God from whom we seek to receive the same healing knowledge. Whoever it was that we're studying, they got the same source that we get. All right. Faith is the curative principle. The words are nothing. Okay. The communication is happening. The words are just a way for you and them to know the communication is happening. It's not in the words, right? Yeah. Next paragraph, the more spiritual the feeling that the practitioner has while healing the patient, the more certain the cure is to be permanent. Permanent. Yes. Now we get into whatever method is used, it is the same. The Japanese youth breathed upon his patients. The German priest made the sign of the cross and cried out with a loud voice, right? The Zoroastrian, in the oldest of Western religions, one may heal by herbs, another by the will, but it is by the divine word that the sick are most surely healed. Okay, the divine words expressed in and through us. But it is no more the words that heal than it is the herbs. Okay? The herbs, the oils, the massage, the pills, all of those things are the means by which the spirit of healing is transmitted. They are not the healing in itself.
I sell my own blends of essential oils and have for almost 20 years now. But I have to tell you, when I'm working with someone, it's not the blend, and it's not the oils, and it's not the fact that I blessed them while I was blending them. It's the fact that the person in front of me I see is whole and complete.
Right on. Right on.
And the ones that I have an opportunity to work with in that relationship are the ones who find my oils the most effective.
And they write back over and over again. Right. Well done. Thank you so much for saying that out loud. All right. So the middle of that page, 109. How shall we absolutely understand how to heal the sick? Paul said it is by letting the same mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus. Moses said the same thing in his own symbolic fashion. Now the Christ mind thinketh no evil, is not puffed up, is not angry, is not vain, is not critical, is full of praise. That's 1 Corinthians 13. I will call to your attention the fact that after a short time, vain or critical or proud thoughts seem to stop the healing power of those who at one time were quite strong workers. Okay? So one of the things I have seen in myself over and over again is the moment I start getting judgmental, it bounces back. The moment I start not seeing the divinity in someone, it bounces back. Yeah. How nice that I get to see it. Right? So it's wonderful to see, and you get to go, oh, well, that's not what I had in mind. Replace that with truth and move on. All right? It's how it happens, right? Choose this day, the last paragraph. Choose this day whom you will serve, for two shall be in the field, one will take and the other left, said Jesus. For all description, silent or audible, brings its outward exhibition. This is not a description of rhapsody. It is, if you are focused on the divinity, you will experience that. If you are focused on the stuff, you'll experience that. That's what he's saying. Okay? Choosing the high truth beyond ordinary perception means constant praise for the ever-present good, the saving grace that heals and provides in all times and places. This is not saying that poverty is good. Right? This is saying that behind this apparent poverty is an abundance of riches. Dissolve the appearance of the poverty to discover the riches. Dissolve the statements. Undo the statements of poverty to discover the riches that are present. One of the things I used to do when I was just starting to teach this stuff was, if cash appeared to not be present or didn't see where it was coming from, I would find what in my house I could give away to prove to myself that I had more than enough. If there was something I had purchased recently and I hadn't used it, I'd take it back to the store. If it was something that, anything that I thought, that I knew that someone out there could use, I would give it away. And it was the beginning of my living a reasonably prosperous life. Yeah.
I think the Freudian slip you made makes sense too.
Prescription.
Yeah, choosing the high truth beyond ordinary prescriptions means constant praise.
I know. Prescriptions or perceptions. Absolutely. All right, the exhibition of our choices, next page, will happen speedily if the inner conviction is alive. Okay? If I'm going through the motions, it's not going to happen. Right? However, if I go through the motions over and over again, I'll chip at that iceberg, and sooner or later I'll see the results. Okay? But the main reason I'm going through the motions over and over again is to convince me. Then when I'm convinced, I'll see the results. You'll see it when you believe it. You'll see it when you believe it. All right. Healings are works of truth brought about by faith. As your faith is established in truth, you'll find more and more people around you to be well or easily recovering from maladies through their association with you, while you do nothing but focus on these 12 propositions of the metaphysical science, which means don't hang out your shingle as a metaphysical healer. You're going to continue to do the work, and they're not going to show up as sick. They're going to show up as well. So you can hang out your shingle as a metaphysical teacher, but don't hang it out as a healer. And that's one of the differences between Emma and Mary Baker Eddy. Mary Baker Eddy was training people to hang out their shingles as healers, and that it was a constant thing. Now, even though she herself was a presence that people got well around without ever having to see her as a practitioner, right? She never was, it said this kind of thing in which, sooner or later you're not, there's nobody to heal because your world is filled with people who have overcome or who have stepped into their higher level of being simply because you're doing the work. Isn't that marvelous?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So the last paragraph, we make a practice of praising everybody and everything, and above all, expressing daily appreciation for all that God works through Spirit. As you continue to do so, you'll find those who come to you are easily healed, and soon your patients will be healed before they arrive. And then they won't be your patients anymore. All right. Wonderful. Thank you. The practice. This is the beginning of the afternoon practice, and I would encourage you to do this several times during the next week in the afternoon as you're willing and able. And again, we're aiming to do this as close to noon as possible. This isn't necessarily an evening practice, I know.
That's the hardest one.
I know. So let's look at it this way. Do the morning practice when you have time for yourself, and do this one before you go out into the world, even if it's only an hour apart.
Okay.
How does that work? This is your relation to the world. And in her world, that was in the afternoons and evenings. Okay? If your life is different, then do the the morning practice as early as you can. And then before you go out to deal with other folks, do some version of this.
Let me ask a question. I'm providing transportation to someone for medical appointments, and one of them is in Corvallis at 8:30 in the morning.
Right. I would do it while I'm waiting for her to come out of her appointment.
Well, I was wondering about it. Can you do it the night before?
Of course, you can do any treatment practice before you go into it, but to try to do
something that negated it if I did it the night
No,
before.
no.
Okay.
But what I would do the night before is focus on gratitude for their well-being and mine, and for and you already have a blessing you do when you're getting in the car, right? So to do the study, see if you can't use some of the time while you're there, right? So ideally, it would be every day this week you do lesson 7 before you go out in the world, okay, or before the world comes to your doorstep, whatever that is. And if that's not possible, of course, I understand, and you'll do as many times as you can. So the first part of it is to clear your own thoughts. So let's read what this says. I, as Spirit, do not accuse the world or myself of lust, greed, or attachment to material objects. All that I see and experience everywhere I look is good. Okay, so why those 3 things? As she unfolds, she's saying that the cause of most distress are these 3 things. However, those of us who have learned the power of language have learned that perhaps saying those things is not such a good idea. And so she said, of anything, I do not accuse the world or myself of anything. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, ever, right? All that I see and experience everywhere I look is good. So feel free, whatever works for you. If labeling what has been understood to be the cause of distress is useful, go for it. If recognizing that any accusation is the issue here, then go for that. All right. So that's you. Now, a client can be someone who walks in the door. It can be someone who enters your awareness. It can be, someone in your family or someone on the other side of the planet.
And ourselves?
No, this is for someone else. You've been doing for yourself for 6 lessons.
Right. Okay.
Every morning. What Linda did last time is she took the language of lesson 7 as one of her treatments for herself in the morning practice. So speaking to herself with this language, and it's a very powerful tool. But for the afternoons, we're talking about the world around us. Okay? So we have time. Are you willing to go through this with me? It's a fairly lengthy piece. Okay. So what you want to do is think in your mind of a person that comes to mind, whoever, and we've already done something, but you might think of someone else. And in your mind, speak the name of the person, speak it again. Feel the connection. Feel the connection between you and that person. Whatever it is, even if it's just transferring paper. But feel the connection. Ideally, it would be the spiritual connection, right? And then what you're going to do is we're going to read these words and you're going to feel them. Speak them with feeling. Allow the truth of them to flow into and through you to that person. Okay, if you have a Reiki background, this is just words on the Reiki. You're doing a distance Reiki, all right? All right, so let's do this together. You are spirit. Therefore, you are not afflicted with any kind of disease or distress. I see you in spirit as the health that you are. The spirit knows nothing of imperfection. The spirit shines through all your being with its clear, holy light. Now, be just in that for a moment and just feel that with that person you have in mind. See that. I see you in spirit as the health that you are. No imperfection. Shining through your being, the clear, holy light. All right, now we'll go into the next paragraph. From the first to the last, in your real life, no error has fastened upon you. Therefore, there is no disease or imperfection in you. Nothing can spoil universal health. All right, you were not born of flesh, according to the law of flesh, but of spirit, according to the law of spirit. Now see them as spirit emerging and manifesting a body that is filled with light and well-being. Because that's all that has ever happened from the moment of conception. Spirit emerging and manifesting its body with light and love. Okay, moving forward. Any apparent lust, greed, and attachment to material objects of the generations before you cannot have descended upon you in disease. God, the good that is in everything, is your father and mother. You cannot have inherited disease. So just feel that the DNA is spirit. It is light. It is life. And it is moving in and through every being. And that inheritance is a useful but not necessarily compelling model. And in the next one, you can just go from you to therefore if you wish. The collective belief has not touched you. Therefore, disease does not touch you. God, the good, enfolds you completely. That's the bubble. God, the good, enfolds you completely. All right. And then next one, people with whom you are associated do not burden you with their thoughts and beliefs of the senses. You are not subject to the thoughts or feelings of others. Therefore, you cannot have disease in your mind. And we'll just go on from now. Your own thoughts of things of matter or about attachments or appetites have no power in them to give you disease. You are in the Spirit, free from your own passions and appetites. Therefore you are cleansed by spiritual thoughts now and are well. My own thoughts and beliefs do not burden you. You are free of any error that appears in me. You are free in the Spirit. You are free from all thoughts of disease. God, your good is your life. You cannot be threatened with death of any part of your life, nor can you fear death, nor yield to death of any part of your life forever. God is your health, omnipresent. You cannot be threatened with disease in any part of your health, nor fear disease, nor yield to disease in any part of your body forever. God is your strength, omnipotent. You cannot be threatened with weakness, nor fear weakness, nor yield to weakness in your strength forever. God is your substance, the essence of your being. Therefore health is God in every part of your body. You are clearly and wholly Spirit. I see you as wisdom, looking toward me to speak of your heavenly wholeness and peace. I see you as peace, facing me as peace that the world cannot take away. I see the child of God that you are, well, whole, wise, and peaceful, here, now, and always. In this moment, you are ready to acknowledge to all and to yourself that you are healed. You are in harmony with your life in every way. And I now realize that you are healed. I praise you for your life in the Spirit. I praise you for your strength in the Spirit. I praise you for your perfect manifestation of God now. For as God is, you are, always and everywhere. Amen. All right. So these are suggestions. Feel free to modify them. Amen means, on this I stand, and from this I go forward. That's what it means in Hebrew and Aramaic. Who knew? Yeah. It is one way. I accept this commitment as another, but the basic, the literal signs come in that way. Okay? So as you feel called to give this treatment for this person once more during the week, okay, continue each Monday afternoon and through the week until it's clear to you and others that the shadow self has drifted away to reveal the true, free soul self of the person. And that's what we're aiming for. Yes.
Could you do this for two people at the same time?
Yeah, a couple for, yeah, sure, or
I
pair.
mean, if
like the two girls.
Like I have one friend with something, one friend supposedly with something else. Could
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Yeah, if you can hold them and feel this with both of them, go for it. But most people are not that successful with their focus. But yeah, if you're able to do that, most people need one at a time.
Okay.
Yeah. So daily, take an hour each morning for some special message, and an hour in the afternoon. So the hour in the morning is 1 through 6, and the hour afternoon is 7 through 12. That's what she's aiming for. And then through the day, practice speaking and thinking only praiseful thoughts. Mm-hmm. See if it can happen. Yeah, praiseful of yourself, praiseful of others. You know, we have such critical thoughts about ourselves most of the time, you know, and we don't have to. Yeah, we don't have to. So, remember that where two or more are gathered. And that's what's wonderful about doing it together. Mm-hmm. So thank you all very much.